proposed revisions that always seem to involve less respect for the rights of free nations and less freedom for the individual. These matters would be difficult under any circumstances. They are further complicated by a trend in Western countries away from global engagement and democratic confidence. Parts of Europe have developed an identity crisis. We have seen insolvency, economic stagnation, youth unemployment, anger about immigration, resurgent ethno-nationalism, and deep questions about the meaning and durability of the European Union. America is not immune from these trends. In recent decades, public confidence in our institutions has declined. Our governing class has often been paralyzed. The American dream of upward mobility seems out of reach for some who feel left behind in a changing economy. Bigotry seems emboldened. Politics seems more vulnerable to conspiracy theories and outright fabrication.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets.
Now, as you may know, my running mate, Tim, is Catholic and went to Jesuit schools. And one of the things he and I have talked about is this idea from the Jesuits of the Magus, the more, the better.
Hello and welcome, everyone. Today is February 24th, Sabbath day, 2018, and I am joined here with Jörg Listman from Belgium and another reading of Codeword Barbelon, 666 Danger in the Vatican, the Sons of Loyola and their plans for world domination. And today we are on chapter 20, on page 205 of the book, Codeword Barbelon, and I highly recommend that y'all get out there and get a copy of this book if you don't have one already. If you're listening to us this deep into this reading, you ought to have a copy, right, Jörg?
Yeah, it helps when you can follow the reading in your own copy of the book, because to me it is always this way, and most of the times, let's say, that's right. It is interesting to listen to the spoken word, but when you have at the same time the same document in front of your eyes and you can read along, it even sinks in deeper into your brain, and you will get better understanding of all this, because here and there you don't understand a word or whatever, and then when you read it, it's easier. So, you know, we are no book salesmen, and I don't care how much money Lux Verbi makes with selling this book. Because this book is, when you measure it on the kind of information that is given in this book, it is a real bargain. It is really cheap. It's only a few bucks. I mean, you must be crazy to even pay more than $20 on this book, for this book on the internet. And when you see what information you get here, well, you know.
Well, Jörg, I've got some news for you.
Yeah?
I paid $30 for mine.
You paid $30 for yours?
I did. You know what? It was used on Amazon, and at the time, they didn't have any inexpensive copies. It was expensive. That was right at your time of your book reading of Rulers of Evil in 2015. I think there must have been a little bit of a surge of demand for that book.
Okay, then let's say about $50. But even if you don't have $50 over to buy a book like this, then, you know.
Yeah, I know. But the point is that if you want it bad enough, you don't care about the price.
Exactly, because
the price is irrelevant. I mean, it's all Federal Reserve notes or euros or whatever. They're all debt-based bull crap.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's irrelevant. Brett, because you still need to have it. Okay.
Yeah.
Fiat money or not, federal notes or not. You still need to have it, huh? You can't just go somewhere and grab that book and steal it, because that would be a transgression of the law.
No,
and we don't
but
want
I mean,
that.
Irrelevant in the sense that, you know,
the point is that even for $50, I mean, what is that? When you go, when you're married to a wife and you have 2 children and you spend an afternoon out to the cinema, you pay more than $50.
Yeah, that's right.
So you think about what is better spent money, going to an indoctrinating cinema with your family, or to spend a little bucks on this book, because You only have to buy it once. You can read it every day. You can read it for yourself. You can read it to your wife. You can read it to your children. You can read it to your neighbor. You can read it to your brother. You can lend it out when you are done with the book to neighbors and friends and family.
Yes.
And you can share this. This may be the best $50 you ever spent.
That's the point.
It's the same with the money of the Bible, you know. A good King James Bible also costs $15 to $20, no more. I have 4 volumes of the King James. No, 3, I think. Wait, in the living I have 2, in the car I have 1, and here I have 1. So yeah, I have 4.
Yeah.
4 copies of the King James version. You can never have enough.
No, you can't. That's right. And the point is that, you know, it's just that, Yerk, is once you're done reading it and you've extracted all the information you can out of it, just hand it off to a friend. Certainly.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And you know, I have friends over from time to time, and you know, they can't help but get interested in what I'm reading. You know, most of them, or the very few friends I have, actually, you know, that are interested, that I allow in my house anymore. You know, there are people that I know that I don't allow in my house anymore. You know,
sure,
because you know, they're involved with things that I would never want to be even close to right now. So I have to keep my distance from that. And I don't know. It's that's just the way it works. But here we are, chapter 20, page 205, Hitler's rise to power. Backstairs Intrigue. Backstairs Intrigue.
And it starts with a quote that we read already 2 broadcasts before, that was published in the French magazine Reform, or newspaper, I don't know. It's a printing issue in any way, from France on the 21st of July, 1945. And that was written by Francisco Franco, the Spanish dictator, on the day of Hitler's death. And the quote is, Adolf Hitler, son of the Catholic Church, died while defending Christianity. It is therefore understandable that words cannot be found to lament over his death. With the palm of the martyr, God gives Hitler the laurels of victory. And 2 broadcasts ago, I think it was, when I read this, I went very deep into examining this little quote. I will only once read it the way that it is need to be understood, because when you read between the lines, as the part of the chapter was called when we read that, you have to understand this little quote in this way. Quote, Adolf Hitler, son of the synagogue of Satan, died while defending Roman Catholicism. It is therefore understandable that words cannot be found to lament over his death. With the palm of the martyr, Satan gives Hitler the laurels of victory. All the world is a stage, wrote Shakespeare, by the way, who also was only a Jesuit-trained actor, and Hitler's campaign was the greatest ever staged, the author says. I do not agree. It was one of the greatest ever staged, because the greatest ever staged is the greatest lie, the greatest deception since the Garden of Eden. And that is the teaching of the unfulfilled prophecy of Daniel chapter 9, and that verses 24 through 27 was not Jesus Christ during his ministry, but that is something for an quote-unquote one-person antichrist to come in the future. That, to me, is the greatest campaign ever staged. But Hitler's campaign was surely one of the greatest ever staged, and was a precursor to allow that nation-state of Israel to be formed where it is today in 2018. And that, of course, is necessary for the Jesuits and the Roman Catholic Church to replay Daniel's 70th week according to their writing.
That's right.
So, all the world is a stage, wrote Shakespeare, and Hitler's campaign was the greatest ever staged under the combined lights of the stage and the ark. We will now look behind the show to see who were the props. The meteoric rise of the obscure and unknown Hitler is arguably the most important event of the 20th century. But how was it achieved? How, asked Nobel Prize laureate Elie Wiesel, did Hitler, a lowly German corporal, an Austrian without title or position, manage to get himself elected, or better say appointed, head of a German nation renowned for its civilizing mission? The answer is simple. As is so often the case with the Jesuits, when they are not able to act openly, they act vicariously. The influential and respected British historian Lord Alan Bullock, an Oxford history fellow, explains, quote, Hitler came to office in 1933 as the result not of an irresistible revolutionary or national movement sweeping him into power, nor even of a popular victory at the polls, but as part of a shoddy political deal with the old gang. Hitler did not seize power, he was jobbed into office by a backstairs intrigue. Unquote. Now, just when I think about this, I had to think of the Al Smith dinner in 2016 before the quote-unquote selection or election of President Donaldos Trumpios. And I remember that he said, when he was on that dinner, he said, in 19 days, someone will be selected.
Yes.
He didn't speak of there are elections and someone will be chosen.
Yes.
Or he said someone will be chosen, right?
Yes, he did. Not selected, but close, yeah.
Yeah, but, someone will be chosen.
Yes.
Yeah, chosen by who? The people think, of course, chosen by us because we are going
That's
to the
just
we are
it.
going to the
Yeah.
we are going to the what's it called, the ballot,
polls, yeah.
the polls, yeah,
or no, the voting booth, whatever, yeah.
Yeah, there's one word that I don't come off. What you guys call
sorry,
that?
I'm not following what you're trying to get to.
What you're calling that when you go to elect and make your cross or whatever it is on that paper to say he or she.
The voting booth, whatever, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The ballot.
The ballot, yes, your ballot.
That's the word
that's
I was
the
looking
paper,
for.
yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one of us will be chosen. That's right, but not chosen by the people, but chosen by the Jesuits. And this,
or rather, selected by the Jesuits. Yeah.
That's right. And this is here with Hitler. It's exactly the same thing, right? Because it says here, but as part of a shoddy political deal with the old gang, Hitler did not seize power. He was jobbed into office by a backstairs intrigue. That's the same with Donaldos Trumpios. So, what was the shoddy political deal? And who were members of the old gang? The puppet masters behind the scenes, says historians, was Franz von Papen and a small clique of right-wing Catholic politicians who orchestrated Hitler's rise to power. Now, are we to regard it as sheer coincidence that von Papen was not only vice-chancellor of the Nazi Party, but also a member of the Catholic Center Party in the Parliament of the Weimar Republic between 1919 and 1933? I don't think that even the author P.D. Stewart goes into that fact. Von Papen was chancellor of the Weimar Republic before Adolf Hitler. He was not the chancellor that Adolf Hitler succeeded, but he was the chancellor before. So it was Papen, then another, and then Hitler came into power.
Oh.
Okay? And I don't think that P.D. Stewart even goes into that. And I don't even know if he goes into that too, but Von Papen was Jesuit trained, was a Jesuit, at least a coadjutor, and he was a Knight of Malta. Anyway, in the book we continue to read, and is it merely coincidental that von Papen was also given the honorary dignity or title of Papal Chamberlain by Pope Pius XI, or that the said honor was revived on July 24, 1959 by Antichrist Pope John the 23rd. That was in spite of the fact that the Nuremberg War Crimes Court had found von Papen guilty of political immoralities. Political immoralities. Ain't that nice? And therefore you get sentenced to, I don't know, what did he get? 5 years, 6 years or whatever?
Right.
for what he did, political immoralities.
Hello.
What a joke that is.
Oh, man.
Why would the Pope still honor such a man? And what exactly is a papal chamberlain? James Charles Noonan explains. They are members of the papal gentlemen who come from families that have long served the papal household for over several centuries. The papal gentlemen are also called the gentlemen of His Holiness, i.e. the Pope. Von Papen was such a gentleman and also a privy chamberlain of the Order of the Sword and Cape and a Knight of Malta, both of which are chivalric Catholic orders. Chivalric, did I read that right? That
Chivalric, word? I think. Is it?
Chivalric, yeah, chivalric, yeah.
I think so.
A little bit, yeah, chivalric instead of chivalric. Sometimes I just do
I know, I could do the same thing here. Okay, it's easy with English to pronounce things different ways. That's for sure.
Okay, so here the author says that he was a Knight of Malta and of the Order of the Sword and Cape and a Knight of Malta, both of which are chivalric Catholic orders. And what are we to make of the fact that in 1925 Hitler appointed a Jesuit priest, Heinrich Himmler, as commander of a special elite corps, the Schutzstaffeln, Guards Squadrons, or short SS? Or can we overlook the fact that another of Hitler's confidant, Joseph Goebbels, who was put in charge of the state-run media for Nazi propaganda, was a Jesuit? German historian Friedrich Hoffe confirms. Hitler, Goebbels, Himmler, and most members of the party's old guard were Catholics. It was not by accident that, because of its chief religion, i.e. Roman Catholicism, the National Socialist government was the most Catholic Germany ever had. This kinship between National Socialism and Catholicism is most striking if we study closely the propaganda methods and the interior organization of the party.
Okay, I got a comment.
Me too.
Oh, good. Why don't you go first?
When you follow me in my book reading The Secret History of the Jesuits, you will learn that there in that book we learn that the plan of the Roman Catholic Church was to take Germany over again after the Second Reich of Bismarck, which was Protestant from 1871 to 1918. Even in 1872, he threw out the Jesuits, closed convents and monasteries and all that stuff. And during the Weimar Republic, of course, the Jesuits were back allowed. They were back allowed, I think, from 1916 on or so, during the First World War, that ban was lifted on the Jesuits. But the point that I want to make is that Rome wanted to secure a Roman Catholic-controlled Germany, and therefore they had to destroy the Prussian power that reigned from Berlin at that moment, and they had to put someone from the south in there, because the south of Germany, especially Bavaria, and especially the part at that time not belonging to Germany, Austria, was Roman Catholic to the core all through the centuries. And they wanted a Roman Catholic from the south to go to Berlin and to throw out the Prussian overlords who were mostly Protestant. And that is why Hitler, a born Austrian, came from Bavaria. When you remember in 1923, if I'm not mistaken, he did the beer putsch, that coup that landed him into prison, where he allegedly wrote the book Mein Kampf, which he didn't do, but Jesuit priest Stempfler did, as we learned last time.
Right.
But that's why they chose that figure, Hitler, who came from Bavaria, or who came from Austria, to take over in Berlin and to install a Roman Catholic power for all of Germany, and by that to destroy the Protestant power of Prussia. But now I'm looking forward to your comment, Brett.
Yes. So, as you know, I'm a little slow, and this footnote here, I think it's quite important. So I'm going to go back to the second paragraph on page 205, if you don't mind,
I
And
don't mind.
this is in reference to the second footnote here. Quote unquote, how, asked Nobel Peace Laureate Elie Wiesel, or Wiesel, is that Wiesel? Did Hitler, a lowly German corporal, quote, an Austrian without title or position, manage to get himself elected, appointed head of a German nation renowned for its civilizing mission? Unquote. The answer is simple, as often the case with the Jesuits. When they are not able to act openly, they act vicariously. They act by substitution, by counterfeit.
Vicariously, like the Vicar of Christ, the one
That's
who is
right.
in the place of,
That's
from
exactly
behind.
right. Just think counterfeit, and then you get it. The influential and respected British historian Lord Alan Bullock. Did you have a comment there here?
No?
Oh, okay. An Oxford history fellow explains, quote, Hitler came to office in 1933 as the result not of any irresistible revolutionary or national movement sweeping him into power, nor even of a popular victory at the polls, but as part of a shoddy political deal with the quote-unquote old gang. Hitler did not seize power. He was jobbed into office by a backstage intrigue. So here we go. This is footnote number 2. Alan Bullock, Hitler, A Study in Tyranny. Okay. Bullock wrote the first comprehensive biography of Adolf Hitler based on the official transcripts from the Nuremberg trials, The book dominated Hitler scholarship for many years. Bullock's credentials are impeccable. Knighted in 1972 and made Lord in 1976, he was Vice Chancellor of Oxford University, and in his early Oxford days, he worked as a research assistant for Sir Winston Churchill. John Campbell, writing in the Times in 1991, said of Bullock's book, quote, although written so soon after the end of the war and despite a steady flow of fresh evidence and reinterpretation, it has not been surpassed in nearly 40 years, an astonishing achievement, unquote. I just thought that was interesting.
Oh, yeah, it sure is. It sure is. I mean, when we read this quote from Bullock here, that he came into office he was jobbed into office by a Backstairs intrigue. It is interesting to know the background of this guy, but most of the people who have anything to write, who are historians, authors in this field of research, they only can publish all the work because the Roman Catholic Church still allows it.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
We should never, ever lose sight of the fact that the Roman Catholic Church, through Miranda Prosos and Inter Mirifica, states that she has the inherent right to own all media. That is radio, television, movies, press, and of course today alternative media, internet, and all that stuff. We should never forget that. So that is why, for example, people like Avro Manhattan, who was a Knight of Malta and was, I think, an active worker of the BBC for some time also, if I'm not mistaken, could write these many books, and those books are mostly still available. They allow these things to come out.
Sure.
Do you know why, Brett?
Well, of course, they have to have opposition.
Because that is, I think, the easiest answer someone can ever give to a question like this. Because most people don't care.
Oh, that too. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Most people who read books like these are initiated anyway and are just getting here and there a little bit more background information. And don't forget, the Jesuits themselves are compartmentalized.
Yes, they are. That's
when
right.
Jesuits read these books, they learn something about their order their superior wouldn't even tell them.
Yeah, that's right.
And they can learn from that, as we can learn from that. So don't ever be astonished when you find this and this said in a book and quoted here and there again. Like Churchill did some very interesting quotes. Like Roosevelt did some very interesting quotes. Hitler did some very interesting quotes.
That's right.
All of the quote-unquote statesmen did some interesting quotes at one time or another during their life. But be sure that all the quotes they did, it was all controlled. It was all allowed, because the media that puts these out is controlled by the Roman Catholics. It's the same with JFK. There are a lot of people who say JFK was killed because of his speech of the secret societies.
Mm-hmm.
No. He was not killed because of his speech on the secret societies. He was not killed because he wanted to print greenbacks again, real dollars, and abolish the Federal Reserve. Mm-hmm. He was not killed because he wanted the troops getting out of Vietnam. He was not killed because he wanted peace with Cuba and Castro at that time. He was not killed because he wanted to put his brother on the top of the CIA, and by that pushing aside Dulles, who was a Jesuit-trained Knight of Malta. Mm-hmm. But he was killed because all of these reasons combined.
Yeah, that's it.
And they just took a date that they wanted to do it, and then they did a Masonic killing on the 22nd of November, 22/11/33, in Dealey Plaza. You know, I mean, you cannot get any more Masonic than that. And the shots that killed Kennedy were 3 shots at specific places in his body, and that is a ritual Masonic killing. I mean, anybody who is a little bit busy with those stuff knows this. So the point that I'm making is, it was not one thing that killed JFK, it was the sum of a lot of things. And all these things they allowed to happen, because otherwise they could have poisoned him from one day or the other to the other without any problem.
Yeah,
but they wanted to state. They wanted to state an example. And today, everybody who is going to Congress or to Senate mm-hmm. is being shown a picture of the head of JFK with his blown away brains. Mm-hmm. And they are told, if you want to look like this, if you want this to happen to you and your family rooted out completely, then just disobey. Otherwise, we pay you money, we give you fame, we give you power, everything is fine. But if you step out of the line, this will happen to you. And everybody in Washington knows who killed JFK. And it's not Lee Harvey Oswald.
That's right. Yep, that's right.
Okay, I just wanted to say this because I think, you know, it is good, Brett, that you brought this footnote up from this Bullock guy, Lord Alan Bullock. Okay, but we have to understand that he published this stuff, and as we then read in the footnote, as you read, he was Vice Chancellor of Oxford University. He was knighted in 1972. So what was he? Was he obeying the Pope in Rome, or was he obeying Jesus Christ? Easy answer. When he was knighted, by the Roman Catholic Church, he was obeying the Pope of Rome.
He's an agent.
So everything that he did with that permission.
Yeah, absolutely.
And these things get out because the Jesuits know there's only a little drop in the whole of the ocean that keeps itself busy with this stuff, like we.
Yeah, this is it.
And the few people who watch this video with understanding.
Yeah, that's it.
Because if this video, for example, gets in 2 years' time 500 clicks, I bet to you maybe 3-4% really got the message of it.
Yeah.
And the rest didn't. And that's the point. So you can pull it out anyway. I mean,
right.
The best example, Brett, and then I'm going to turn back to the book. The best example is the Congress of the United States of America. Mm-hmm. When you are looking at the speaker's pulpit, behind that pulpit are left and right fasci.
Yeah.
Everybody can look up that picture on Google, and it will be told to everybody that this is a Roman power symbol. Now, what has a Roman power symbol to do in the legislative of a Protestant country? Burp. You missed the answer. Huh? It's in your face, Brett.
It really is. Yeah.
And these things that we are reading and the sources of this book and everything, it's in your face for us who are deeply involved in the study of this subject, and all the other thing is just in the face of the people. I mean, they wouldn't recognize a zombie if it stood right in front of them.
No, they wouldn't. To
use another allegory. But anyway, I'm going to continue in the book reading now, and thank you for the intervention of that.
You're welcome. Yeah, let's keep going.
That comment was interesting. I stranded on the top of page 207,
yeah, I think.
When Hoffe says again on page 2. So this is another quote from Frédéric Hoffe, the German historian, of his book L'Impérialisme Protestant, which is French for Imperial Protestantism. The book that he published in 1948, and from that book is the quote taken that reads as follows. On that subject, nothing is more instructive than Joseph Goebbels' works. He had been brought up in a Jesuit college and was a seminarist, means a priest, before devoting himself to literature and politics. Every page, every line of his writings recall the teaching of his masters, his Jesuit teachers, that is. So he stresses obedience, the contempt for truth. Some lies are as useful as bread. He proclaimed by virtue of a moral relativism, means probabilism, extracted from Ignatius Loyola's writings. Unquote. Hitler himself said, I can see Himmler as our Ignatius of Loyola. Hitler himself in 1930 even used the most famous Jesuit maxim, Parliament is for us not the goal, but the means to an end. The Jesuits say the end justifies the means, a Machiavellian principle found in The Prince. It is interesting, too, that Hitler's National Revolution began in Bavaria, home to the Illuminati, founded by Jesuit Adam Weishaupt. I just gave you a few minutes before the reason why Bavaria was chosen to start that, because it was with the beer putsch in 1922 and 1923, and Hitler being an Austrian living in Bavaria at that time. And as we read earlier, Walter Schellenberg, the former chief of the German counter-espionage under Hitler, admitted after the war, quote, the Schutzstaffel organization had been constituted by Himmler according to the principles of the Jesuits order. Their regulations and, listen closely, their regulations and the spiritual exercises prescribed by Ignatius of Loyola were the model Himmler tried to copy exactly. The Reichsführer SS, Himmler's title as Supreme Chief of the SS, was to be the equivalent of the Jesuits General, and the whole structure of the direction was a close imitation of the Catholic Church's hierarchical order. The Catholic Church's hierarchical order is the same as you have in the Jesuits. You just have different names. In the Roman Catholic Church, you have the priest, the bishop, the archbishop, the cardinal, the pope. In the Society of Jesus, you have the novitiate, the coadjutor, scholastic, the professed, and the general on top. The provincials and the general on top. It's the same hierarchy. It is the same pyramidical structure. The Roman Catholic Church is older than the Jesuits, so the Jesuits just copied that structure and filled it in with their own hierarchy. But the hierarchy system, that pyramidical system, is the same. Everything leads to the top, to one person on the top. There is only one ruler. And this one ruler only wants one people to rule. And that is the goal of the quote-unquote New World Order, which is actually nothing else but the Old World Order restored. Meaning the papal ultramontane supremacy over the whole world instead of only over the Western world as it used to be in the time before the Reformation. Now in the book it continues, this is what Michael Schmaus, a Jesuit theologian, had to say on the subject of the National Socialism or Nazism and Catholicism. Nothing is more contrary to Catholicism than democracy. The National Socialist commandments and those of the Catholic Church have the same aim. And remember, we read already in another broadcast, 1 or 2 or 3 broadcasts away, before this one, we read of the Civiltà Cattolica, that fascism is the policy most responding to the aims of the Jesuit order. Something that you can look up for yourself in Civiltà Cattolica when you type that in on the internet. Easy to find. Mm-hmm. If, reader, you still doubt that the Jesuits and the Catholic Church were behind the rise of Hitler and the program of the Nazi Party, the Third Reich, then consider the words of Hitler himself. I learned much from the order of the Jesuits, Hitler said. The Third Reich is the first world power which not only acknowledges, but also puts into practice the high principles of the papacy. Now, this is actually a quote from Franz von Papen, as we know that he did this quote on the Nuremberg trial when he was on there. The first world power which acknowledges and puts into practice the high principles of the papacy? What? High principles of the papacy? What high principles? Consider also that Hitler's Central Security Service had in most of its leading posts Catholic priests wearing the black uniform of the Schutzstaffel, the SS, and that Jesuit Father Himmler was one of its superior officers. Edmund Paris writes, within the SS Central Security Service, an organization was created, and most of its main posts were held by Catholic priests wearing the black uniforms of the SS. The Jesuit quote-unquote Father Himmler, who was the uncle of Heinrich Himmler himself, was one of its superior officers. The Nazi SS soldiers also wore belt buckles inscribed with the German Gott mit uns, God is with us. Don't the Americans have written over their banner, "In God we trust"? Sure sometimes you should ask yourself. Sometimes you should ask yourself, what God are they talking about? Now, you have to allow me just a second here. Maybe Brett can tell something in the meantime. I have to look at the picture here of because of this Himmler stuff that we are reading here.
Oh, Jörg, I'm so glad you're doing this reading today, because it's just incredible to hear your commentary on this too, because your German heritage, your native language is German. You know it so well, and you probably know the history well too. And you went to you were a serviceman in the armed service, so you have a little military experience as well. So I mean, it really adds up to I mean, you know, it gives you some weight to work with what you're saying here, because someone like me, you know, I grew up with parents that didn't want me going into the services. You know, I didn't go into the Navy, Air Force, Marines, whatever.
Good for you.
Yeah, I was never encouraged to do that. My dad was, you know, an Air Force veteran himself, and he said, "No, you don't need to go. You really shouldn't." You know, was his advice. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's we all have very specific. What should we say? Gifts that God has given us. Yeah, backgrounds.
Gifts.
Yeah. And yeah, please, Jörg, if you're ready, I'm ready for you.
Yeah, I'm ready. I got the picture already since 2 minutes here.
Great.
I'm fast with that.
Good.
You have to understand, dear listener of this video, when I read here on the page 208, I'm going to repeat this again. Himmler, uncle of Heinrich Himmler, it says here, the Jesuit Father Himmler, which is the uncle of Heinrich Himmler, his name was Joseph Gebhard Himmler. Joseph Gebhard Himmler. And he was a Jesuit priest. And he was not only a Jesuit priest, he was a confidant of Halke von Ledorkowski, the Jesuit general at that time. They were, I wouldn't say on the same level, but he was a confidant of that general, had much influence onto him. And this Joseph Gebhard Himmler was the uncle of Heinrich Himmler, the one who was leading the SS.
Mm-hmm.
So, with an uncle that high in the Jesuit order, who do you think ran the SS or ran the SS?
Mm-hmm.
Some German nutcase? No, the Jesuits all along.
Yeah.
Huh?
That's right. They only want the people to think that there's a German nutcase, and it worked really well, you know.
Yeah, it worked really well. People believed it, you know.
Oh,
people
absolutely.
People believe that Hitler was just a German nutcase, as most people believe that George W. Bush was just an American nutcase.
That's right. Yep, exactly. Yeah, there's a real parallel there. Oh, my. Yeah, there really is.
So, and if you do not believe me, then please do your own research on Joseph Gebhard Himmler. And if Brett wants to and has the possibility, I can send him the picture. I have the picture right here, and he can put that picture into
the notes. Into the notes, yeah.
Into the video.
Yeah, that's right. But
it's a picture.
I have a little what do you call this? An application that's called Notes, and it allows PDFs and what do you call JPEG or whatever image files. I can drag them right in, put them in my notes, and got them right there, ready for the broadcast when I do the video.
Okay, I have here something. Another photo also of Joseph Gebhard Himmler, and I just want to read that to you, what I have stand here, because I think this is taken from the website Spiritually Smart. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I think it is. It reads, a Benedictine monk, so that's Himmler, lived at the monastery of Maria Laach, one of the pan-German high places. He also had an uncle, so we are speaking about Heinrich Himmler, the chef of the SS. He also had an uncle, Jesuit Himmler, which is Joseph Gebhard Himmler, that I spoke about already, who had held the important position of canon at the court of Bavaria. The German author Walter Hagen gives also this discreet information. The Jesuits general Count Halke von Ledorkowski was ready to organize, on the common basis of anti-communism, some collaboration between the German Secret Service and the Jesuit order. As a result, within the SS Central Security Service, an organization was created, and most of its main posts were held by Catholic priests wearing the black uniform of the SS. The Jesuit Father Himmler was one of its superior officers. After the Third Reich's capitulation, the Jesuit Father Himmler was arrested and imprisoned at Nuremberg. His hearing by the International Tribunal would have apparently been most interesting, but Providence was keeping a watchful eye. Heinrich Himmler's uncle, Joseph Gebhard Himmler, never appeared before that court. One morning, he was found dead in his cell, and the public never learned the cause of his death. And of course, you can guess that it was probably Ciancali or whatever kind of pill that he took and killed himself. The Jesuits are masters of poisoning. And when they really want to shut somebody up, they do it just like what they did here with Joseph Gebhard Himmler. This is something they did after the Second World War, and you are telling me that they could not have done the same with JFK any moment they wanted to? They just let him rant along and do the things he wanted to do, and then set an example at his execution. Because the killing of JFK was no assassination. It was a public execution. Very big difference.
Yes, that's right.
So now you've learned a little bit about Joseph Gebhard Himmler and a little bit more about the background even than it is told in this book, which is already giving a lot of background. And as to make certain of God's blessing, Hitler's troops were sprinkled with holy water by the Catholic priests, giving the Schutzstaffel the added approval of the Vatican. Thus, we are forced to conclude that Hitler was the Catholic Genghis Khan, and his entire machinery was as a baton in the Pope's hand. Yes, Hitler was a monster, but he was created and suckled by the hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church. Even his speeches were scripted by the Jesuits. The full responsibility for all the atrocities of World War II, and I have to add of World War I and World War II, is to be laid at the feet of the Pope and the hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church. Do you doubt that the Roman Catholic Church was behind Hitler and the Second World War? Why do you still doubt this fact? Did not von Papen, Hitler's vice-chancellor, confess, quote, "The Third Reich is the first world power which not only acknowledges, but also puts into practice the high principles of the papacy"? And that the Schutzstaffel was organized, it's again a printing mistake here, and that the Schutzstaffel was organized according to the principles of the Jesuits order, the model Himmler tried to copy exactly, and the whole structure was a close imitation of the Catholic Church's hierarchical order. What more proof do you want? Did we not read of the Jesuits' pledge to deluge Europe in blood in order to recover the Pope's temporal power? This they sought to do using their agent, Adolf Hitler, through Backstairs Intrigue. Before I will continue reading on page 209 and then page 2, and then we come even to a conclusion of this chapter, very fittingly at the end of almost the time of an hour. I want to tell you. I want to tell you a little bit something that appears to you when you read this book between the lines. I go back to the first paragraph on page 209. Okay, and there we read of Hitler's vice-chancellor von Papen the quote. Listen very closely. The Third Reich is the first world power, which not only acknowledges but also puts into practice the high principles of the papacy. Do you hear me coming? The first world power are the Germans. The second world power that will put into practice the high principles of the papacy will be the world power of today, United States of America. And first and for all against their own people. I mean, it is so, when you do this research, these quotes are so in your face. It says the Third Reich is the first world power. That doesn't mean it's the last. That doesn't mean it's the only one. It's the first of at least two. Because otherwise, he could have said the Third Reich is a world power which not only acknowledges a world power, or the Third Reich is the first to put into practice the high principles of the papacy. He could have said it just like this. No, he chooses to say the Third Reich is the first world power. Now, when Germany got destroyed at the end of World War II, you had two world powers left over. Britain was no world power anymore. They could do nothing without the Americans. World War I proved that, and World War II proved that even more. You had United States of America on the one hand, and you had the United Socialist Soviet Republics on the other hand, the USSR. the communist bloc in the East. So you had two world powers. And both world powers behind the scenes are controlled by the Jesuit order. Communism, as we read earlier, was controlled and brought into Russia by Lenin and Stalin, who were both Jesuit trained. In the United States of America, when you read the real founding of the United States of America, about the real quote-unquote founding fathers, you know that from 1776 on, when the 13 colonies became the United States of America, then in 1789, and the Constitution was put into place and the Bill of Rights was put into place, you know that all the quote-unquote framers of the United States of America came from the Illuminated powers. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
From the Jesuit.
Mm-hmm.
Just the same as you had in 1917 with the revolution in Russia with the communists. Also the Illuminated movement, the Jesuits. So after World War II, you have what? You have the destruction of the first world power that put into practice the high principles of the papacy, which is Germany. And then you had, instead of one world power, two world powers taking over. Russia on the east and United States of America in the west. Then we come into the 80s and we learn of a quote-unquote holy alliance, where the Pope conspired together with Ronald Reagan the demise of the of the Soviet Union through Poland. Read for yourself, study it for yourself. So the Jesuits brought one world power down and rose even higher the second world power, or the first world power, whatever you want to call it, United States of America, to the heights where it rules the world today. Everybody says, why is the United States of America the policeman of the world? Why do the United States of America have military bases in 200 countries all over the world? Well, because they are the second beast of Revelation 13.
It's as simple as that.
But Revelation 13 speaks at a certain moment about two beasts. So when you go to Revelation 17, there's only spoken of one beast.
Mm-hmm.
So this means that all these beasts before that, and let's even call Germany at this moment a beast, because it was a beast in the biblical sense. It was a nation. It was a apostate power. Yeah. Germany was brought down. Soviet Union was brought down. Now America has to be brought down.
Yep, that's the truth. Yep.
That in the end, only one power rules, and that is the Roman Catholic Church. And von Papen gives it away when you learn to read between the lines, when you learn to understand the book, not as it is written, but as it is meant to be understood. When you read that the Third Reich is the first world power which not only acknowledges, because United States of America acknowledges already long time the power of the papacy,
mm-hmm.
because it is not Protestant anymore, but it also puts into practice the high principles of the papacy. Now you only have to wait until the United States of America will put the principles of the papacy into practice. And that is what von Papen here was speaking about. Enough of this history, the author continues on the bottom of page 209, and let's end with this, the subject of the chapter 20 of Hitler's Rise to Power, Backstairs, Intrigues. Enough of this history. Let us return to the work of the Jesuits of today, 2006, the time of the publishing this book, or 2018, the time of the reading of this book. We shall see that the same Jesuit-controlled families who backed Hitler, Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Carnegies, Harriman, all four of eugenics fame, the Fords, the Bushes, etc., are in power today. Enough said.
Yeah.
Enough said.
Thank you, Jörg. Yeah. Should we just leave it at that?
Yeah, for me it's all right.
Me
I did
too.
my job.
Great. Wonderful. Yeah, that was really something, Jörg. And
I enjoyed this reading, absolutely.
Me too. Yeah, it's really good to learn more about this part of history and look at it through the eyes of a repenting Christian that reads the King James 1611 King James version, authorized version of the Bible, because if you don't have that scripture, then you're probably going to miss out on some of the most important lessons that the Lord could ever teach you in his walk with you. So don't miss out. Get yourself a Bible today, man. Don't delay it. Start reading it. Start questioning things in your life. Put it in, just like Von Papen here, put those principles and replace all the principles you've been told by all the liars, and replace it with the truth in your life personally. That's my suggestion.
I vouch for that.
Yeah, it's a painful process, but I must say it's worth it. Absolutely worth it. You'll never look at things the same again. How was that in that that movie, The Matrix? Was it, Yerk? Was it the red pill and the blue pill? And I forget which was
Yeah,
which.
that's the movie. That's the movie, The Matrix. Yeah.
Yeah.
The red pill and the blue pill.
But it's just an example, if you can take the pill that everyone else is taking and go on your merry way and enjoy your bread and circuses like the rest of the Roman world. They really do enjoy it, and they really don't like to question these things.
That's true.
They really do. So ignorance is no bliss in my house. No, I don't even allow my cats to be ignorant. Just kidding. All right. Well, thanks.
Okay.
And that was wonderful to get this in today. And I'm looking forward to chapter 21, Number and Influence of the Jesuits. I read here. The Jesuits are here and there, everywhere. Oh, boy. Aren't they ever?
Yeah. It's always getting more and more interesting the deeper we go into this book.
Yes, it is. It is.
I'm glad that we already have reached at least at page 210 right now, because this means when you put this volume and the second volume together, we have accomplished 1/5 of the complete reading up to here. And today is Sabbath, and I am here on the afternoon. It's 5 p.m. here in Germany. In Germany, I wanted to say in Belgium, here in Europe for the moment.
That's right. Yeah.
And we will not do another reading today because Brett and I will meet with Tom Fress in 3 hours for our Bible study. Mm-hmm. And I hope that we can come back together tomorrow on Sunday, the 25th of February, for at least one other reading, maybe even more, on Codeword Barbelon. And until then, I just want to give you the advice that I always try to give. Do your own research. I can speak here until the cows come home. Mm-hmm. If you don't verify what I say here with your own research, it's all worth nothing, And I have been made awake by a former friend of mine in 2010 who just said these simple words to me. Jörg, you are one who stands always for the truth. You are not so gullible as it seems. You are not dumb either. Do you really believe 9/11 happened the way that it happened? And that was the trigger that I needed. That was, through that atheist, God speaking and pulling me out of the matrix. That was the moment when I, without even understanding it, was given the red pill. Mm-hmm. The red pill is the 1611 King James Version of the Bible, the true and preserved Word of God today. Get it, read it, understand it, and then avail yourselves to historic books and interesting books like Codeword Barbelon to understand and to match the Bible prophecies unfulfilled history that is not taught in the schools. Until next time, thanks for watching, listening, and commenting. God bless you, and bye-bye.
Yes, again, thank you, Jörg, for the reading and discussion of this book today. And I extend my greeting to everyone else, and hope you have a wonderful day, what's left, or evening, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing. And we'll catch up next time. Hope to hear from you soon. Bye-bye.
That for the first time in human history, for the first time in all of human history, almost all of mankind is politically awake. And these new and old major powers face still yet another novel reality, in some respects unprecedented. And it is that while the lethality of their power is greater than ever, their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. I once put it rather pungently, and I was flattered that the British Foreign Secretary repeated this, as follows. Namely, in earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people. Literally, it was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people. It's easier to kill than to control.
We're at the very beginning stages of a very brutal and bloody conflict. And I believe that we've come horribly off track in the years since the fall of the Soviet Union. And we're starting now in the 21st century, which I believe strongly is a crisis both of our church, a crisis of our faith, a crisis of the West, and a crisis of capitalism.
His son Jesus is here in our midst. His bride, the church, is honored to host an event affirming the dignity of the human person and the sacredness of all human life.
I think Russia is no longer a communist state, first of all. That's very important to realize. It hasn't yet defined itself, however, effectively as a democracy. It is still uncertain.
We're at the very beginning stages of a very brutal and bloody conflict, of which if the people in this room and the people in the church do not bind together and really form what I feel is an aspect of the church militant, if the people in this room and the people in the church do not bind together and really form what I feel is an aspect of the church militant, to really be able to not just stand with our beliefs, but to fight for our beliefs against this new barbarity that's starting, that we will literally eradicate everything that we've been bequeathed over the last 2,025 years.
You didn't mention the president by name, but it was hard not to conclude that that's who you were referring to. Is that fair?
I was certainly referring to the threats that we are now facing with this stated goals of this administration, which would upset the last 70 years of a new world order which was established after World War II. 70 years based on human rights, respect for the law, free trade, all of the things, aspects of this world order that took place after one of the most horrific, terrible wars in history, and I'm for maintaining it.
We are grateful to be citizens of one nation under God, who acclaim this evening that in God we trust. Bless our two candidates, our benefactors, and those whom the L. Smith Foundation has been honored to serve for 7 decades. Guide us safely home, both this evening and for all eternity, through Christ our Lord. Amen.
It's no coincidence